Hello, my name's John Smagel. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I made a series of videos. As I always tell my story, a short, quick story about myself. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm not able to get out and attend church on a regular basis, so I decided to make a series of videos just to put out a lot of the subjects I'm studying about. I have to excuse myself. I've got a bad cold this time of year after Thanksgiving. Made it through Thanksgiving. Now we're all sick in the family that's going around. There's a lot of subjects I talk about that aren't taught in church as much, and some topics are good, and some just to open up studies to other people. And one thing that I've always was fascinated about was about talking in the Old Testament about King David's mighty men. There's a lot of stories about them, and I wanted to bear in light who they were and what they were, why they were considered such great mighty warriors. So First Chronicles 11:10 through 25. These also are the chief of the mighty men whom David has strengthened themselves with him in his kingdom with all of Israel, to make him king according to the word of the Lord concerning Israel. And this is the number of the mighty men whom David had: Jashobeam and Hachmonite, and the chief of the captains. He lifted up his spear against 300 slain by him at one time. And after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahonite, who was one of the three mighties. He was with David of Pasdammim, and there was the Philistines were gathered together to battle. Where was a parcel of ground full of barley, and the people fled from before the Philistines. And they set themselves in the midst of the parcel and delivered it and slew the Philistines, and the Lord saved them by a great deliverance. Now 3 of the 30 captains went down to the rock to David into the cove of Adullam, and the host of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. And David was with him in the hold, and the Philistines' garrison was with him at Bethlehem. And David longed and said, "Oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem that is at the gate." And the three brake through the host of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of the Bethlehem that was by the gate. I took it and brought it to David, but David would not drink of it, but poured it out to the Lord, and said, "My God forbid me that I should do this thing. Shall I drink the blood of these men that have put their lives in jeopardy? For with the jeopardy of their lives they have brought it." Therefore he would not drink it. These things did these three mightiest. And Abishai, the brother of Joab, he was chief of the three, for lifting up a spear against 300, he slew them and had a name among the three. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. Also he went down and slew a lion in a pit in a snowy day. And he slew up an Egyptian, a man of great stature, 5 cubits high. And in the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam. And he went down to him with a staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and had the name among the three mightiest. Behold, he was honorable among the 30, but attained not to the first 3. And David set him over his guard. David's mighty men was not a great number, 30 altogether. And then he had 3 main characters I just talked about who stood out among the rest. The reason why I'm fascinated by this, and this is just a quick video talking about this, is of what these men did accomplish and what they faced. A lot of times in previous videos, I discussed how early man was bigger, stronger, and then man today is weaker. I spent over 20 years in the military. I've served 2 branches of the military. I've done all kinds of survival training and infantry. I was in infantry school and did infantry training. I was combat. I'm a combat veteran. I served over the Middle East, and I've seen everything I have dealt with. Is for me was always been physical. I've studied through the years a lot of different martial arts I loved. I started at a young age, 14, 15. I got the love of the martial arts. Some are good or some are bad. That's something I've talked about in a previous video. But I've known people, I've had friends. I got started, they were studying Kung Fu with a man who actually spent a lot of years at Shaolin Temple that came to my hometown and studied at a private school. From there, I did a lot of Taekwondo, Western boxing. I've been 3 different places doing Western boxing. 2 different places doing Taekwondo where I went up in rank. I got just almost made black belt. I was a stripe away from black belt in Taekwondo with the ATF Federation. I've studied MMA. I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu through the military and friends. Gave me many opportunities to go different schools. I've been to 3 different MMA clubs, and actually 4 different, through the years, different MMA clubs I studied, training. I have, I can't remember, apologize, I can't remember the color belt. I got 4 or 5 belts into Ryukyuan Kempo. I studied, that was a 2-year study I did, Japanese style. And I've been in the boxing ring, 2 different boxing rings, different areas boxing. And actually, I fought in an octagon. So I've done a lot of physical things. I love the combat. That's something that's been on my heart. But I believe because of that, God used me in the military, and I trained a lot of soldiers through the years, and in firing all kinds of weapons, but also doing hand-to-hand combat. So, not that I'm a very knowledgeable man, but I'm saying I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to military and combat, and I have a lot of respect for our people today in the military. A lot of young men. I was 51 years old when I retired, and shortly afterwards, I found I had cancer. But I've dealt with the training, I've dealt with the physicalness, so I say I have a lot of knowledge in it, and speak about how men today aren't as strong as they used to be, and that's something that we tend to been taught and lied to all of our lives, where men were weaker and we just gradually built. And it's the narrative, more is coming about. We're in the latter days, and more is coming about information that God's letting come out that, things aren't what you thought they were. But it speaks about one of his 3 mightiest men. Benaiah slew an Egyptian who was 5 cubits high. Well, if you go by biblical cubit, that measures 18 inches. So the man was 7.5 feet tall. He carried a spear like a weaver's beam, and your standard weaver's beam is 2.5 inches in diameter, but varies in length. A lot of times throughout the Old Testament, you'll hear when they talk about the size of the spears that these guys have. So you're talking about a spear that's well over 8 foot tall. Because I remember doing training with quarterstaff training that we had, because I've done some sword training. I've done some European martial arts too. I apologize. I should have said that sooner. I've done some sword training with a friend of mine who went out and does competitive things. Belongs to the organization. I can't remember offhand the name of it. I know they go to Florida and 2 other places, and they always talk about going to Europe to the fighting over there. So they train with what they call Eastern martial arts, European martial arts, night training and things like that. So I trained with them for, at that time, for over a year, about a year and a half. And we did quarterstaff training. So the quarterstaff was 6 foot 6 inches long. That's how long your quarterstaff is, your staff to fight with. So these spears are a lot longer than that, because here I'm just 6 foot tall guy. I'm using staff just 6 inches taller than me. So, but something that's very interesting, and I try to open up people's minds to study God's word. The biggest thing I have with people was they like, well, I don't understand it. It's hard to well, get into studying it. Quit making excuses. There's a lot to it. And when I study and do these, even for a short video, I'll spend days and hours. I spent over 12 hours just doing this on this amount of information I have. That's not very much. But there are things that we're looking at different and we're understanding now that we didn't before. And when it talks about Benaiah, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. And the reason why I put these out is a lot of times, if you talk about the 6th chapter in Genesis, it talks about before the flood. The reason for the flood was angels coming down to the earth, and 200 angels called the Watchers having sexual relations with women. And yes, angels can, they're spiritual. They're able to make themselves into the form of you and I. It talks throughout the Bible about we entertain angels unaware, and they can become man-like and in the flesh, and they try to assert and make their own creation against God. and basically made hybrids. A lot of times you'll see some things in mythology, like I've talked in a different video. There's some truth to some of that stuff. Some of these creatures that we look at the hieroglyphics, if I say that correctly, over in Egypt, places like that, where they show half man, half creature. I believe that there was genetic mixing of things that created those things. A lot of people are crazy, but we're doing that today. And nothing's done today that wasn't done in the past. I truly believe that. But I looked at other research through Jewish paperwork, and these lion-like men of Moab, when it talks about he killed 2 lion-like men of Moab, then he went down there and killed a lion in a pit. It showed 2 different things. The lion-like men, a lot of times they say, well, they were warriors, very violent. They fought like lions. I don't agree with that understanding. It's possible that they were hybrids. And I'll get more into that. There's a name for them in Hebrew called the Ariels that was known for the men of Moab, this tribe area. And from the translations that Ariels comes from, it's Ariel, which is from 2 Hebrew words, Ari and El. Ari means image of a lion, and El means God, angel, or even demon. So I believe these lion-like men of Moab were not totally just physical men, but had some spiritual, supernatural mixing of DNA. And of course, you can disagree. I don't come on here to say I have. I'm looking and studying this, and I'm 100%. Never do I say this in my videos. I give a presentation, what I'm studying, what I'm looking at, so other people will get the desire. Hey, I'm gonna check that out. Well, that could be good, but let me find out myself. I never go by what a man says. I go by what God says. So I'm constantly studying, spending hours on studying, and I enjoy to study. That's why I do these videos. But for an example, I have is ancient Nephilim with the appearance of a lion man hybridization. The possibility there's not just the Nephilim, they were the originals, offspring of angels with women, but there's many tribes. There was 36 tribes without the Old Testament that were giants, and I believe this is where giants come from. And that's my next statement. David's mighty men fought giants, and I get that from 2 Samuel 21:15 through 22. Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel, and David went down and his servants with him and fought against the Philistines, and David waxed faint. I mean, he fought so bad, he was just tired. And I apologize for butchering these names, but I'm not very good at pronunciation. I have a speech impediment anyway, so it don't help. And Ishbedin-Nob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, secured him and smote the Philistine and killed him. And then the men of David swore unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to Baal, that thou quench not the light of Israel. And it came to pass after this that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob, and then, excuse me, the Sibbechai and the Heshemite slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elam and the son of Jerorgam, a Behethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers and every foot 6 toes, and 20 in number, and he also born to the giant. And we divide Israel. Jonathan, the son of Shimeon, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. And last, I put Joshua 11:22. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel, only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod there remained. There are certain tribes that were known to be very tall giants. If you go back and read, study, and then Anakims was one of them. And they lived in the Gaza, Gath, Ashdod area. And these were very big giants. And then it talks about these other giants being the offspring of them. Excuse me. Goliath when David killed Goliath, I didn't get into that, but when David killed Goliath, it talks about him going down to the brook stream on his way walking to Goliath to fight him. He picked up 5 stones. Why did he pick up 5 stones? Because Goliath had 4 brothers. They 5 were very large. So David had so much faith that not only was he planning on killing Goliath, but he was going to kill his 4 brothers. The Philistines weren't known to be giants, but there was something there because it's known there was a lot of Philistine warriors out of it. Goliath and his family weren't the only ones that were working with the Philistines. We don't know exactly where the Philistines come from, the area they came from. We have different stories, but it's been conflicting. I tried to research it because I know there was a lot of giants in the Philistines, and the Philistines was really a thorn in the Israelites' side. And that's the reason why a lot of times they had so many battles with the Philistines, because these were huge, tough warriors, and constant battle there with them over the land. I just want to make this was just a quick video, something I just put out a little bit to talk about this mighty men, to open the doors for you to look at and study, to get the ideas and maybe more study into when I talk about hybrids and Nephilim, because that's the reason why David's men were considered mighty, men of great strength, not because of their size, but of what they fought against. They fought against, they weren't afraid to take out the remnant of the giants, and that's what they did, and that's where their fame came from. So the last recordings in the Old Testament of wiping out the rest of the giants that were left over. So there's pre-flood giants that were very huge. And to give a mind frame, everything was bigger on earth before flood, pre-flood. Before the flood, everything was bigger. I believe Adam and Eve were tall. They weren't no 6 foot tall. Like man, roughly they say 6 foot tall today. I look at them at being like throwing out a guess, 15 feet tall. Where Noah, as generations down after a flood, Noah's going, he's 12 feet tall, and then everybody's going down there. As for height, around average of 6 foot, 5'10". So a lot of the early people were bigger, stronger. Some of them was due to the giants of the mixing of the angels and the women, but also everything, like I said, was bigger. Our atmosphere was different before the flood. The whole world changed. And that's the mindset I try to get into people when they study. Don't look at today. I spent a lot of years working in the military. Last 13 years when I was in the military, I was in the Guards, so I was able to do a civilian job. The first 8 years in the military, I was in full-time service. I worked coal mines for a few years. Done factory work for a lot of years, but worked in coal mines a lot. And a lot of those coal miners, I talked to the older coal miners, we were underground at least 500 feet or more. Things you see in underground coal mines is totally different. People don't understand. When you look at things, you can see the trees, and what gets me is how detailed the ferns and things are. But once you dig in and tear the stuff up, it just falls apart. Like coal's not actually black. People think, well, coal's black because we see nothing but black. Once the oxygen hits it, it turns black. But when you first get coal, it's got a red tint to it. And actually, if you walk up to coal, as soon as you dig it, it's red. In a matter of seconds, it turned black. So coal really has more of a red tint to it. I can't tell the difference. I mean, I'm partially colorblind on some colors I have trouble with. But even with my problems with the colors, I still can see a little difference in the coal when we first dig it out. But a lot of coal miners believe in there's a God. Many of them do. And there's a lot of coal miners that don't. And there's a lot of people around that have both viewpoints. I'm not just saying coal miners believe in God, but there's a lot of work to do. And a lot of times we talk about Noah's flood because they believe that's what the coal's from. And I agree 100%. It's proof of a flood. But hopefully this will give you insight and kind of sow that seed for you to study and look at these men, these 30 men, and see what they fought against. And it's just kind of to get the imagination going. I cannot comprehend fighting a giant. I got a son that's 6'8". I wrestle with him. Well, I don't as much anymore. I'm to the point where I can't do that much wrestling. I got one son that's 6'3". My oldest son 6'8". So I'm not small. I have a cousin that's 7'1". We don't like each other too well. I remember wrestling with him in high school and getting in a fight. So God bless you, and hope to bring out more videos in the future and more things that just look at and study and always asking questions. Thank you.